Zoning is one of the more controversial character archetypes in fighting games. I say controversial, but I really just mean that some people don't like zoners, whether that's playing them, playing against them, or spectating them. You might even be one of those people. I think a lot of us have run into the kind of sentiment a lot of people online have for zoning. But why don't people like zoning? Well, there's a few different reasons anyone could have for not liking zoning. Some people think it's boring, while others may consider it spamming or unskillful. But I don't believe any of that. I think zoning's pretty cool actually, and I'm gonna try and explain why. Fighting games usually have rosters consisting of mostly characters that do some form of getting in. You want to get in, start some pressure, do some combos. The character you pick will vary your way of doing this, but this is often the goal. This means that most of the time you're going to see two characters that both want to be in the opponent's face but don't want to get hit on the way there. You have the option to make the approach and hit them first, but you also have the option to stop your opponent's approach by waiting and reacting to what they do instead. This is neutral, most of the time. Guilty Gear top player Machibo did a really good write-up on fighting game fundamentals that talks about this, but unfortunately at the time of writing this video that link is dead. So I'm just going to show a screenshot of it that I was lucky to obtain a while ago, and also provide an alternate link to a post that covers most of Machibo's write-up. Anyway, with zoners it's a bit different. What is it like playing against a zoner? If a player wants to wait for the opponent to do a move and then react to it, what meaningful move can that player do when the zoner is so far away? They're probably still going to be playing neutral after the reaction. If a player wants to surprise attack a waiting opponent where it's already unlikely for a zoner to just be waiting, then the player still needs to overcome that distance to land the surprise attack in the first place. If our player wants to preemptively throw out moves to cover space, good luck controlling space against a zoner. Fighting a zoner forces players to depart from the strategies that they're used to when fighting the rest of the cast. I think this is why they're so disliked among newer players, because there's such a drastic change in playstyle and the counterplay is often not obvious. They won't really get to hit people with their buttons because they're constantly being shot at from the other side of the screen, and there's nothing more unfun than just not getting to play at all. Zoners can be pretty irritating when you're unprepared, plus there might naturally just be something more annoying about taking several little hits over time compared to just one big combo. Who knows? I think they're pretty cool though, and I'm going to try and explain why, but first I want to clarify that I don't mean literally every zoner ever. Some zoners are just... yeah. I'm trying to speak generally, so some elements of what I'm going to talk about will inevitably vary by zoner, with some things applying to certain characters while others not so much, but I'll try to keep it simple. So in very simple terms, when I say well designed, I mean the zoner has the tools to stop most of your approach options, however, they cannot cover every single approach option at the same time. Of course, it absolutely goes deeper than that depending on the game and character, but generally this is what I think sets up a zoner with an interactive neutral game that can be fun to play and watch. So what makes them cool? What makes zoning interesting in general is often unseen until you look deeper. On the surface, the zoner really can just look like they're spamming projectiles, but have you ever tried looking at it differently? Most zoners will not be able to cover every approach option the opponent has at the same time, so to stop the opponent they need to know where the opponent will want to be and where they want to approach from. Trying to guess this too often will likely lead to the zoner's demise thanks to damage ratios, which I'll mention later, so zoners need to mentally fight the opponent from afar to increase the effectiveness of their zoning. So how do they do this? There are several ways, but let's look at this one clip. So he doesn't jump because of butterfly. He's that scared of it, it seems. But I want him to jump, so let's not do butterfly anymore. And now he has no ball, so he has to jump! There we go! Alright, let's rewind that back again. This clip starts from a neutral position where I have the advantage and can zone. Both of us are now at low health values, meaning that neither of us can afford to make big mistakes. Of course, I try to maintain distance while also shooting some arrows his way, but I'm also sending out this butterfly. The way the butterfly works is that when an arrow hits it, it will explode in a pillar, creating a wall that will cover multiple options, such as if they jumped over my arrow, they would still have to block the pillar. However, getting this butterfly on the screen takes a bit of time and can be unsafe if not done well, which is why I'm doing it from a range where there is no immediate threat, and a time in the game where my opponent likely doesn't want to recklessly run in. As I said aloud in the clip, I observed his movements in neutral and realized he doesn't want to jump at all when a butterfly is on the screen. Why? Because a butterfly explosion blocked in the air can lead to unblockables. That's when I realized that I wanted him to jump, because if I could catch it, I could end the round in one super. So I stopped using the butterfly despite it offering the safety of covering multiple approach options. Though that's exactly it. I allowed the opponent to have the breathing room to jump in neutral by not having the butterfly there anymore. In fact, I encouraged him to jump by actively covering the ground. Yes, even the whiffing of this move was key into giving the opponent the message that you'll take damage if you come this way. At this point, what I was trying was obvious, so he opted to try a ground approach anyway rather than jump in the air like I clearly wanted. Though, I'm just theorizing this whole thing, I'm not a mind reader or anything. Regardless, his attempt at the ground approach was unsuccessful still, as one of my arrows tagged his special, and in Granblue Fantasy Versus, your EX special moves have a cooldown after you use them. A second arrow came his way, one that I don't think was meant to hit, and reduced his health to a sliver, which I think finally made him crack and jump to his death. Zoning is not a mindless wall of projectiles. Guilty Gear's tutorial mode is a mindless wall of projectiles. It's a good thing there are ways around most zoners because that's what enables the person trying to approach that zoner able to actually make thoughtful decisions in neutral, instead of simply being there suffering until a random gap magically appears. But what should a person be thinking when trying to approach a zoner? First of all, I think it's important to remember that against any decent zoner, you're going to get hit a few times. It's going to happen, it should happen, and it might feel really annoying. Just remember that just because you're taking more hits doesn't necessarily mean you're losing. It just means that when you finally get in, you've got to make it count. Anyway, how could someone contest a zoner in neutral? Well, some hopefully helpful examples could be, they can jump and watch how the zoner reacts. Does the zoner stop covering the ground and start paying more attention to the air? Can you use that moment to make a surprise forward dash? Does the zoner keep retreating, walking themselves into a corner? Can you use that knowledge to safely walk them to the corner and take advantage of that? There are several strategies you can come up with during a match. Just never think that there's nothing you can do until a zoner makes a mistake. When either player can scout for and notice a pattern, make sure you exploit it to the fullest. But maybe this whole thing is entirely pretentious and what zoners really do is just stand on the other side of the screen and shoot at people all day and do absolutely nothing else. Okay, look. Do you not appreciate smart and creative plays? Do you just want to see people get beat up? Because zoners can do that too. In fact, they should do that too. Why do zoners rush people down? Zoners like to throw projectiles and keep you away and stuff, but often good zoning is a mix of knowing when you need to transition from bullying them in neutral to bullying them right in their face. Zoners in modern fighting games, at least the ones I pay attention to, won't really get by on just zoning alone. There comes a point in the match where they switch gears and start laying on the pressure from up close. Why would they do that though? The answer is that they have to. Sometimes, maybe in Twitch chat or elsewhere, I see people say that a player using the zoner shouldn't have gone in, and they probably said that because the zoner went in and then died. Fair enough, with hindsight maybe they shouldn't have, but I can't really blame them for doing that, you know? Unless you're a zoner who can constantly fill the screen with crap, eventually your opponent is going to get past you. It's almost a given. Zoners are not without holes in neutral, and the opponent is given multiple opportunities to try and overcome the zoning that they're faced with. Your projectiles or normals may be chipping away at their health fairly successfully, but all it takes is one good jump in for them to counter hit you and make up for that damage through just one confirm. It also doesn't help that, arguably, a lot of modern fighting game meta seems to disfavor zoning, whether that's done intentionally or not. Be it through the system mechanics working against them, or characters having moves that just ignore zoning entirely. Though that could be a whole other discussion, my point is, in fighting games, you're trying to kill your opponent before they kill you. There's a damage war going on and you want to win it. If you stick to zoning, chipping away at their health, and they're not busy suicidally running face first into your projectiles, there will likely come a time when they get past all the zoning and either punish you or put you on the defensive. That's when you get bullied. Zoners tend to have weaker defensive options, get cornered and get bullied because that's supposed to be the reward for getting in on the zoner. Compare the damage dealt from many successful hits while zoning to the damage of them evading one of your moves and landing a combo. If you're strictly zoning, you better be ridiculously good at not making any mistakes, otherwise you'll likely die in less mistakes than your opponent. The way to gain a more consistent win rate is to win the damage race, and to get that damage you're going to have to rush down. The zoners you've been seeing in this video work because not only do they zone, they also have the tools to rush you down and mix you up when they need to. Hell, what would a zoner with no rushdown tools even do when the opponent has a life lead? The opponent may as well just sit there and laugh because there would be no way for the zoner to make a comeback. It's actually pretty awesome seeing the way some players transition from zoning to rushdown seamlessly at times. Zoners are adaptive, creative, and I think that when you play one yourself for an extended period of time, you discover the nuance that goes into playing that type of character. Like, if you haven't played a zoner before, I implore you to seek one out and try them. It's likely a whole new perspective on how you play the game, and it can even help you when you come to fight zoners yourself in the future. Just don't pick a weak zoner because that might really just be suffering, especially if they're lacking some tools that are supposed to make a zoner good in the first place. But if you still don't like zoners, then that's fine, I guess.